All right, Ultra Noops Nation, my name is Reed Nelson. This is Izzy Alkavas. This is the Season 9 premiere of This Week in Rec, which is pretty sweet. If you go back to the first episode, it's about 1.5 minutes long, and it's pretty funny.
You should bring that back.
I can link it at the bottom here. The reason we did it is because people were, that was like, who was it that dropped like 8 F-bombs in a row? Was it Jamichael Ollie? I didn't want to make sure I got it right. Just 8 in a row. Yeah, we had to go on and be like, all right, guys, we got to cool your jets. So that's what started it all, Season 9. Okay, first things first, Gorillas, your team loses opening night. We'll get to the fact that they actually won. But first off, you guys, it was one of the most uninspiring, just awful performances I've ever seen. So the question is, now that you've won your Gold Cup, do they even care? Especially about the regular season? Be honest.
Well, it's really hard to get motivated to have to, like, oh, now we have to play another 8 weeks to get back to the playoffs. The good teams just want to get to the playoffs. That's all we really care about, you know? So we went into the Crusaders. Now, if we would have started the season off with a team like the Rebels, Goodfellas, we would have been inspired because it's, you know, it's a competitive team. But when you see the Crusaders, we assume that we can just go in there and kind of lollygag our way to a victory. And obviously, yesterday with Clay Thompson on the Crusaders, that wasn't the case.
Which we'll chat about in a second. I mean,
yeah.
Even with Derek Scully, you guys are still favored to win that game by a lot.
If we know who he is, yes, but we didn't realize what was happening till we were down 20 points in the second half. We were down 20 points with like 15 minutes left, and then we really started to play basketball, and we cut it down to 3 points, I think was the closest we got, and we just we didn't give ourselves enough time to make up for Clay Thompson. So
Derek Scully, an ineligible player, Rainy River Community College. So he scores like 29 points, like 8 boards. He's just an excellent basketball player.
It's not how many he scored, it's how he scored them. Like, they were all like 27-foot three-point shots with somebody within a foot of him. Like, I don't know what he's doing at Rainy River, but he's a D2 basketball player for sure.
So you guys get to win. There'll be some in the players committee that won't look at it quite like a regular win, you know, because you did lose, but regardless. So Sonny Younggraves is not the GM of the Crusaders. Call him an assistant GM. I think Michael is the GM. Am I correct?
Or Quentin. Yeah, I think Michael or Quentin, one of those two.
Well, this is not the Crusaders' first run down ineligible player lane.
Maybe third?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't. The records are not kept necessarily, other than in my head. But it wasn't hard to find them.
No.
Like, it wasn't hard at all.
You type in Derek Scully, the first thing that pops up is him, like, winning the national title for whatever it is, and he hit a game-winning 3 and iced it with 3. Who knows? The guy, I mean, the first thing that pulls. And Sonny said he Googled him.
Yeah, he didn't say what he found.
Yeah, it's true. He technically didn't lie. He did Google him.
Sonny, I know you Googled them, but what came out on the other end of that Google search? So, you know, we've discussed this before. We are on completely opposite ends of this. You think GMs should be punished for this type of behavior?
Yeah. Well, because the whole point of the rule, we don't want to have forfeits, and we don't want to have this to surface, right? So how do we eliminate the problem? We don't eliminate the player that he wasn't going to play regardless. So what happens is Derek comes and plays. If he gets by, he gets by. If he doesn't, they probably would have lost without him anyways. What's the big deal? If we start punishing the GMs, what happens is the GM now says it's just not worth it. Like, they're going to type Derek Scully in, and sometimes it's really hard to find somebody, and sometimes it's extremely easy, and he was one of the easiest of all time.
So does a team have to designate a GM then?
Yes.
Because a lot of teams have like co-GMs or
just one. Every team should have a GM, whether it's that guy that puts the team together, but somebody needs to designate a GM for purposes like this. So when Derek Scully goes and plays, Michael Groves is punished for that mistake. Because if Michael Groves knows Derek Scully played basketball, he's not going to risk his own league, right, his own game, for a guy we know we're going to catch. So he will put an end to Derek Scully, and they'll find somebody else to bring in.
In theory, it's a good call, but execution, what would the punishment be?
First time offenders gets 2 games. 2 games.
Game suspension.
2 game suspension. And I guarantee you there will not be college basketball players. We're trying to eliminate it from happening, right? So how do we eliminate it from happening? It's kind of like Singapore. Singapore, you go steal and you lose your hand. So if you really want something, go ahead, but you're probably going to lose your hand if you do it. It's kind of the same thing. You strike the fear in them, they're going to start paying attention. That's the whole point.
Okay, so Singapore. Got it.
We're going Singapore.
Joe Epple. I believe the last time he said he played rec, he's like, I'm done playing with rec. And I remember who he called out because I'm sick of so-and-so shooting 14 threes in a game. And he's back.
Can you give the name?
It was a player on the Rebels. Let's put it that way.
Player on the Rebels.
Yeah, well, we don't need to get into it, but Joe Apple's back.
Oh, okay, got it.
How big of an impact is he going to have?
Well, the player that he's talking about is no longer on the team, so I guess it kind of makes sense. He didn't have a good game yet. He's obviously out of shape. Epple at full potential is sick. The guy he's a maestro on offense. He passes the ball well. He offensive rebounds the ball well. He shoots the ball well. He's got a great post game. He's an amazing offensive talent. But that was 2.5 years ago. What we saw yesterday was not the Epple of old. So does he just take some time to kind of, knock the rust off and get back into the swing of things, or is he just a downgraded version of Joe Epple? What's happening with the Rebels is they used to have an identity, and that identity was defense, right? They're slowly starting to add offense to their game. So now what they're going to need to do is, Epple's not a defensive, she's not a shutdown guy. Colby's not a shutdown guy. So they're adding these players who aren't the best defensive players, and they're changing kind of how they're going to play the game. Are they good enough to still win a title? Absolutely, based on talent, because you still have great defensive players and you still have great offensive players. But they're changing with the times. The Rebels of old, even though they had an identity, it wasn't going to be able to win with the type of talent that's out now. So they have to keep up with the Joneses, and they're adding this offensive talent. So we'll see how they kind of gel, and if the defensive liabilities that they've added, if they can make up for it on the offensive end. I think they can, because they're just too good overall. But it's just kind of interesting to see the change of the Rebels of late.
Mark Bittner back in the league after a couple-year break. Now, he said he retired.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, and I think we have a clip. I'm going to tease it. So if I can't find it, I don't know what I'm going to fill it in.
He had told me I'm retiring after this season. He said it multiple times. I don't think we have a clip of him actually saying it, but we discussed it on This Week in Rec. I know that we did.
Okay, well, that's maybe coming right here.
As the old guys, Bittner retired tonight.
Oh, he's done.
He retired tonight.
That was maybe Mark Bittner talking about him retiring. We'll see how the technology works for me. Top 10 guard in rec?
No, not top 10 guard in rec. He's really good. Really like his game. But the issue is Bittner of old couldn't shoot. I don't know if he can shoot now, but he wasn't a very good three-point shooter. So he was D-Wade. Bittner was D-Wade. He drove the lane. He drew a lot of fouls, and he went to the free throw line a whole bunch of times. Now the problem with Bittner is he spends too much time complaining to the refs, and I have a feeling that hasn't changed.
That's entertaining though. He's one of the best.
Yeah, and he was one of my favorite players. When I came into the league, he was one of my favorite players. I think he's one of the most underrated players of all time in rec. He wasn't really talked about that much, but the guy's got talent. But there's so many good guards, I can't just throw him into the top 10 as I think he's like 33 years old. I can't put a 33-year-old guard that hasn't played UH in 2 years and say, yeah, he's top 10. I'll watch him. He could be, but I would say no right now.
We'll reassess come midseason. Yeah. Bennett Lang flips on the Muskies the morning of the first game. What are you hearing about this through the grapevine?
Whatever's happening, there's a lot of dirty boys in this league now. Just a lot of dirtiness going on. Bennett flips the night before. Rumor has it that he had decided a week prior or maybe a handful of days prior and didn't tell Junius till the night before. Bennett is a white collar, you know, he runs a golf course. He should have good etiquette and manners. And hey, Junius, giving you a heads up 5 days. A day before the season is extremely sketchy, and it's just bad character. Bennett's a hell of a player, and I don't think you realize the magnitude of taking Bennett off that team the night before is not only a detriment to the team, but now you give them no chance to add a solid player. Now the Muskies did.
Yeah, Mike. Or was he already on the spot?
Samus's brother, Luke. So they made up for it, but it's just we can't have the league do this, players do this, because what ends up happening is teams only have 5 or 6, and then there's forfeits week 1, and you know there's a lot of player movement. We get it, and it just sucks when players don't have the balls to just do it right away, and they wait till the last minute to back out.
Yeah, planning ahead, not procrastinating to the last day. Generally, we had a forfeit tonight. You know, it's just not. It's not good.
Everybody's trying to win. We get it. There's teams that are, you know, they're breaking up and they're building super teams. You know, just kind of there's just overall sketchiness. You know, Off Constantly is a team that was assembled, and the Callahan and Club have merged. Look like. Pretty much leaving some other players behind. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses. So it's going to happen in rec, but it just needs to be a little cleaner.
Something we never talked about because I wasn't here for the championship game is now we are 8 straight seasons with 8 different champions. Summer season champion Big Smash basically didn't even return for the. I mean, they did, but the team was completely different. The Gorillas, by all indications, are going to maybe win 3 games this season. I mean, you'll make the playoffs and you might make a big run, but it just, you know, the fire wasn't there. You know, I think based on what I've seen this week 1, we could have a new 9th team win it, and it could be a team like the Sock Thumpers, who they're loaded. Okay, and me personally would love to see that streak continue because we had the Turtles win 3 in a row, and then it's been 8 straight, you know, non-back-to-back, non-repeat winners. Who do you see emerging as a potential dark horse?
Well, not a dark. You can't say a dark horse is going to win because you have the Goodfellas, you have the Rebels, you have the Gorillas, you have Off Constantly. There isn't going to be a dark horse. One of these elite teams is going to win the championship. I'm almost certain of it. So if you want a 9th winner, it's going to have to be Off Constantly or the Goodfellas, because the Sock Thumpers are great. Love the team. They lack a paint presence defensively, and they just lack the defensive punch in the post that's required to win a championship. They can make a run. I can see them going to the Final Four, maybe even the finals, but they're going to have to beat elite teams in the Final Four and the finals, and I just can't see them doing it back-to-back nights. You know, you look at a team like the Warriors, who added basically it's Callahan adding Devin and Jake Gave. I think they added John Price, I believe.
I wasn't able to see that game tonight. He was in uniform though.
They have a sneaky good team. You know, that's a good starting lineup. It's a team that can win. So I would say, you know, there's 5 teams that could probably win, 6 teams that can win the championship. But I just think that there's going to be a huge gap in talent this season. I think there's going to be 5 or 6 really good teams, like elite teams, and there's going to be a huge drop-off, and then the middle-of-the-pack teams.
You didn't say the Avengers.
The Avengers are good, but they're going to have to win with teamwork because they've lost firepower. You know, they lost Zhao. You know, Derek's playing later on in the season, so they're going to struggle to get a high seed unless they come together as a team and play good team basketball. But when I'm talking about elite teams, I'm talking about every single position in the starting lineup is an elite player at that position, right? And the 5 or 6 teams I'm talking about have that. Whereas, you know, the FOB that's coming back, the Avengers, they don't have elite players at every position. They have a lot of good players, role players with a couple stars. So it's different.
Well, no, and I mean the smart money is on one of those 6, 7 teams,
right.
But postseason comes.
Yeah, it's true.
Postseason comes. So Last topic, Marcus Sherrills is playing in Ultimate Hoops. Did you get a chance to watch him yesterday?
Yeah, I looked at him and I was like, how is that guy an NFL player?
Can you imagine, like, now don't get me wrong, he's a far superior athlete to anybody who plays in Ultimate Hoops Rec. Let's just get that out of the way. But, like, think about it. He has to tackle players like Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson and Eddie Lacy. Like,
yeah, well, but that's why he's not tackling them. So, because he's not big enough. He is 5'9" at best.
He was standing next to Brandon Lorncott, and they were about the same height. Now, Marcus could probably bench about 4 or 5 Lorncotts.
Yeah, with one arm, probably.
Probably, but they're about the same height.
Yes.
5'8", 5'9", maybe.
I don't know. I don't know how he's an NFL player. I thought they're, you know, when you think NFL and you see him on TV, they're wearing pads, they're wearing, you know, and they look bigger than they. I mean, he is a small guy. He is 180 on a good day, but he was wearing long sleeves and the leggings, so he could be bigger than he kind of showed. But he's definitely not tall. But he's a freak.
He's like 8 for 9, all layups, all steal layups.
He gets down the court. Like, Kavarian Williams is still quicker than Marcus Sherrills, but Marcus Sherrills is fast. The dude is
the fastest player in the league. Faster than Kavarian.
I would love to see Kavarian and Marcus go at it, but I think Kavarian is world class type, Olympic type athlete in terms of quickness. There is nobody in this league that has ever seen anybody in person that has been as quick. Like Kavarian a couple years ago was lightning. And I'll go out on a limb and say that he's world-class Olympic-type athlete in terms of quickness. He gets 0 to 60 faster than anybody we've ever seen. I think he's quicker than Marcus, but I think if you put him in 100-yard dash, Marcus will beat him. But I think Kavarian's got him on the 40.
No.
Can we set that up? Can we set it up?
I don't know. I mean, potentially.
The two-cone drill, then. The two-cone drill.
We can ask him.
We got to set it up. We got to get enough comments to set it up.
We should. Who?
We got to get enough comments.
Oh yeah. Well, we should do almost like a UH Olympics.
Yeah, it's gonna be
like the shuttle drill, like like all sorts of fun little games. That'd be really fun.
Well, why don't we just do Marcus and Kavarian, because that's really who's gonna win.
No, but it doesn't have to be all sprints. It could be other things.
Like Helmy and Colby doing like the 6-cone or. That would be awesome. We got to see that too.
Parting thoughts.
There's still a lot of teams showed up with 5 or 6 players and forfeits. We still need to see what Fob's bringing.
Big smash potentially.
Potentially. You look at off constantly, think there's still a couple guys short. UANO, a couple guys short. Who do they play? The Bees had 7. There's another team that only had 5 tonight. We know who the Pigeons are adding. In Bloomington, there was another team that the Red Devils. They had 6.
Yeah,
they had 6. There are a few teams, not off the top of my head, I can't remember them, but there are some players going to be added next week.
If you're looking for a squad, please reach out. Right down on the bottom of the comments, there are players, there are teams looking for players. There are still players looking for teams, but you got to put your name out there. So week 1 is in the books. I'm not going to make a prediction yet, but I will predict the Gorillas will not win the Gold Cup. So, all right, see you next week.